Hi, I'm Amiel, and you're watching another video courtesy of Amiel's Healing Facilitation and my website www.melindaurban.com. I wanted to take a few minutes here to talk about emotions because they're so critically important to our spiritual journey. And in particular, I wanted to talk about the misunderstanding about processing and managing emotions that I often witness in the spiritual community or with those that are awakening. But before I get to the core point, I want to just establish some common understanding about emotions. The first is that emotions are simply energy in motion, and you may have heard that before. So we as human beings are energy beings. Everything about us is energy, and it's the same energy as the energy of the universe. And when that energy is organic, it's fluid and it's always in movement. When it stops moving, we create what's called dead light. So when we're talking about processing and managing our emotions, what we're talking about is keeping the emotional energies in our energy body fluid and moving. When they get stuck, this is when it creates pain in the energy body. And so it's critically important that we find a way to keep that energy moving. Now, this brings us to the second point, and that is that many people on this planet have great difficulty knowing how to move that energy, how to manage particularly painful emotions, and sometimes even the joyful emotions. And there's a reason for that. There's several reasons for that. One of them is that the divine blueprint, the form upon which we are created, has been deliberately manipulated, and there's been genetic distortion to the blueprint. Genetic manipulation and distortion to the soul body, which is very much connected to our emotional well-being, our ability to feel, and to have empathy. And so there's been a lot of programming as well, a lot of mind control about emotions. The way that you're probably most familiar with that mind control is through your experience in childhood. There are thousands of beliefs that people have about emotions that limit them. But what it always comes down to is this core idea about emotions that we received in childhood. And it is that emotions are not allowed. Most children get that message in one way or another, that their emotions are not okay. So this is what sets up a child to feel that they're not allowed to tell anybody what they're feeling. They're not allowed to express their emotions. And sometimes, well, they're not even allowed to feel them. They're not even allowed to let themselves know that those emotions are there. And this is the setup for suppressing emotions. This is when the energies stay stuck rather than simply moving through the child, rather than having a freedom to simply express those emotions. The energies get contained and suppressed. And this is how we create pain, and this is what many people are still holding in their energy body at this time. So this now brings me closer to the point that I want to make. From my perspective, there's a spectrum on processing emotional energy. At one end of this spectrum is truly allowing yourself to feel your emotional pain as a part of your healing process. So this means that you allow yourself to be fully present to what you are feeling, to be fully present to the sensations in your body as they arise. You don't push them away, You don't try to change them even initially. You simply allow yourself to accept that they're there, to acknowledge them, to allow them. And often this comes with catharsis. What I mean by catharsis is allowing the movement of that emotional energy. We can move energy in a variety of ways. We can feel them through tears and allow the energy to move that way. We can feel anger surfacing. We can express that with the sound or move the body. Sometimes even journaling will allow us to move that energy out of the body. But the most important part is allowing yourself to feel it, to remain present to the emotions, to remain present to the experience of it. So even sometimes people will say, yes, I feel that emotion, but what they're actually doing is staying in their mental body about it. They're connecting to it through the thought about the emotion, rather than experiencing the pain, experiencing the energy that's moving through them. So that's one end of the spectrum. And I want to say that that emotional energy that often needs to come up through expression is, of course, the energy of that young child. So even if now, as an adult, you have a much greater intellectual understanding about emotions, you know that they're valid, you know that it's important to honor them, you may even be a little bit more comfortable expressing them to loved ones or safe people in your life. If you still have emotions that you are holding from your childhood, painful emotions that you've not directly addressed with that young child that received the programming about emotions, then those are still waiting to be addressed in your body. That's where the healing needs to take place. So that's one end of the spectrum. At the other end of the spectrum, in managing emotions, is witnessing or holding neutral on emotions. What this means is that arriving at a place of spiritual maturity and emotional maturity, you have the ability to simply observe the emotion, to acknowledge that it's there, and let it pass through you fairly easily and fairly quickly. This means that you recognize you are more than your emotions. You have probably done a fair amount of healing of those emotions, and you no longer need to bolster the negative ego that's holding that pain, and so you can witness it and let it move through you. Now, here's what I often witness, and that is that sometimes people will go to witness the emotion and hold neutral with the intention of, addressing it in a spiritually mature way, when what needs to happen is the emotional catharsis. In other words, that there is indeed some painful emotion that younger part of them is still holding on to, and that it would be really valuable and helpful to acknowledge the younger child that's feeling that pain, and to give permission to that younger child to feel those emotions, to feel that pain, so that that energy can move, so it can actually move out of the body and release in a very permanent way. So there's a distinction to be made between those two ends of the spectrum, and of course there's everything in between. But I wanted to present this simply to alert you to the fact that there's a discernment that needs to take place here as to whether there is something here that you can simply witness. Again, this is often when you have done a fair amount of emotional healing, You've done inner child work. You have addressed the painful emotions of your childhood or even other timelines, other lives. Or you may still have some parts of you that can really benefit from allowing that emotional catharsis. And of course, we're always on a spiritual journey of growth and healing. So even if we've done a fair amount of conscious work, again, most of the time we can witness energies, we may still have those parts of us where we find that there is actually a lot of energy that wants to come up and move and wants to come up and out. And so giving permission to it is critically important. That's what keeps the energy fluid. That's what shifts it from being limiting to creating inner peace with yourself. So, of course, if you find in your life that there's an emotional energy that keeps surfacing for you, that you do get triggered into emotional reactions, and you're living with emotional pain, unresolved emotional pain, and you want to change that for yourself and feel that you could use more support, please take a look at my website. I have lots of information about the services that I provide, and if they resonate, please give me a call. My website is www.melindaurban.com, and my blog also has lots of free, helpful information. So I hope this has been helpful. Be peace.